Welcome to Excel Magic Trick number 787. Hey, if you want to download this workbook, click on the link below the video. When you download this video, you'll find a topic sheet, 30 conditional formatting tricks. This is an epic video, as you can tell. Now, to make an epic video like this, it's going to be well over an hour. If you look below the video, there's a Show More button. If you click that, you'll see this huge list, and it will have a time. And you can click on any one of the topics you want and jump to that. If you watch the video from beginning to end, you will get kind of most of what there is about conditional formatting. We have 7 built-in tricks, which are really one click, and then a bunch of formula methods of creating conditional formatting. This is where the real power is. The versatility and breadth of conditional formatting applications is huge when you can do a formula, a true-false formula. So there's a bunch of examples. Not only that, but when you download this workbook, there's some links here. So if I want to jump to this greater than 600, I click on that, and it jumps to the sheet CF4. These are links. So if I want to go straight to the highlight row and actual exceeds budget, I click on this, and boom, I'm right there. Let's start on sheet CF1. Let's click on the sheet CF1. It all comes down to this. Conditional formatting applies formatting to a cell, right? Oh, OK, so I'm looking through the list, and I want to say above average. Well, that one's above average. This one's above average. This one right here is above average, and I'm going to add red. Now, notice what did I do? I asked a question. And the question I asked is it above average? The only two answers to that question is either true or false. So all conditional formatting applies to formatting to a cell. And when the logical test evaluates to true, formatting is applied. Logical test evaluates to false, formatting is not applied. And this is for built-in or formula conditional formatting rules. I'm going to Control Z here. All right, above average sales. Let's highlight this whole column. Control Shift down arrow. Conditional formatting. And in 2007 and 10, they have a bunch of amazing built-in features. Now, we're going to do above average sales. So we go to top or bottom rules, and then above average. It's simply going to ask you what color. Here is the drop down. You can see the default, but down here is the real power, custom format. Now, custom format in the olden days had fill, border, and fonts. Now it has numbers. 2007 to 10. This is awesome. This means you could change the number formatting. I'm just going to add, for this particular one, red, and then the font color will be white. You can do whatever you want. Once it's true, it gets applied. All right, so that's pretty cool there. Later, we'll see how to do above average sales with formulas and highlight the whole row. Let's go over here. The next one is below average sales. So I'm going to highlight this whole column. Go up to conditional formatting, top and bottom rules, and let's go below average. I'm going to accept the default. Let's look at another one, CF3. This one I want to see the top 5, so Control Shift down arrow. Conditional formatting, top and bottom rules. Notice it says top 10 items, top 10%. Let's do top 10 items, and I'm going to select 5. Now, this isn't connected to a cell. If you knew how to do formulas, which we'll learn how to do, then you could put the number here. And when you change it, if this is applied with formulas, it'll change. All right, but now there it is, the top 5. Boom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Conditional formatting trick 4, greater than 600. Now, this is a built-in feature, and we will be able to connect it to a cell. Control Shift down arrow. Conditional formatting and highlighting cell rules, greater than, less than, between, equal to, text that contains. So if you had like Birch Street, and there was lots of addresses with Birch Street, that would be a great one. Date occurring, duplicate values. Let's go to greater than. And I'm going to not accept that number. But notice this. Anytime you see that, that means you can connect the text box to a cell. So I'm simply going to click on that right there and then click OK. The beauty of this is now I can change this to 400. And instantly they update. Still, these are built-in features. Let's click on CF5. This one is called data bars. And I'm going to highlight this whole column here. And what I want is, and you see I put rank over here. The biggest one is going to get a data bar, which means the cell will fill up with color. Number 1 will get the most color, meaning the longest bar. Number 2 will get the second longest. Number 3, the third longest, etc. So it basically works off of rank. Now, the logical test here is, hey, is the cell equal to 1? Is the cell equal to 2? And if so, if it's 1, it's going to be the tallest bar. 2, it's going to be the second tallest bar. So we just go up here in data bars. In 2007, there was only solid fill. You could see the solid fill on the screen. And in 2010, they have this gradient fill. Now let's go ahead and change this. Here's the biggest. I'm going to change this 1,000, right? And instantly it updates. Next one, this is just so silly. Why am I even showing this? Color scale. And in essence, is going to do not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but it's going to group them. So it's going to say like 0 to 20. 0 to 20, we'll get one color. 0 to 40%, we'll get another. 0 to 60, so it's like percentiles. And depending on which one you select, it could be 5 categories, 3 categories, 4 categories. I'm going to go up here. Color scales. I've never used this ever. Don't like it. But there it is. So the biggest ones in the top group get green. And then the next biggest group gets next green. Still further, let's go over to 7. Here's another total silly one, but very popular. Icons. Again, it's going to do that same grouping, either groups of 3. So the top third will get a particular icon. The middle third will get a particular icon, and etc. Let's go up to conditional formatting, icons, and there it is. That's 3. There's 4, so groups of 25%, groups of 33%. I'm going to select this one. There's 5 down here, 20%. So there it is. The top group gets a green up arrow. The bottom group gets a red down arrow. And the middle group gets a arrow to the side. Now, on to the real heart of conditional formatting. We're going to click on this sheet number 8. Our goal on this sheet is we have a date with criteria here. And we want to be able to put whatever date here and highlight the number. So for example, this cell, we need to ask the logical test, is this date in this row equal to this? And then we go down one. This cell needs to say, hey, is the date over here equal to that one? This cell needs to say, hey, is the date over here equal to that one? So if we were to go up to conditional formatting, highlight cell rules, and go to date occurring, I don't see a way to tell this cell to look over there. So I'm going to switch over to formulas. I'm going to click cancel right here. Formulas just means we can't click one of these built-in ones. We're going to have to click on manage rules, or I'll teach you the keyboard shortcut, and put a true false formula into a dialog box. This dialog box will in memory copy the true false formula down so that every one of these cells has a logical true false formula. Now you can't put the formula in the cell because there's a number there. That's why there's a dialog box. Let's just see if we can think of how to do this over here. Okay, equals, well, I need to say, is this date in this row, relative cell reference, is that equal to this date right here? And I need to lock it. And I'm going to lock it using the F4 key. I hit the F4 key twice to lock the row reference. That $ there means as I copy down, that will be locked. I'm going to Control Enter. I can see I get a true. If I copy this down, I can see I got true, true, and there's a true, true there, because sure enough, this row right here has the date 5/25. Now, the concept here is this cell needs to look over here. And so that's why we switch into formulas. Now, let's just check this out. Is this column of trues and falses exactly the same size as the column over here? Yes, it is. Now, you absolutely do not have to put the formula in the cell. The advantages of building it in the cell is you can see visually where you're going to get your trues. When we copy and paste this formula into the dialog box, you never see the formula because it's behind the scenes, stored in memory. All right, so I'm going to make sure that I copy the very first formula, and I'm going to highlight it in edit mode and Control C for copy. Escape. And now I'm going to highlight the exact same parallel range. Now, very important, that's called the active cell. That active cell has to be exactly parallel to the cell we copied the formula from. If I went like this, now if I opened up my dialog box for conditional formatting and pasted the formula from this cell, in memory it would go here and it wouldn't work. So when you copy your formula, you have to highlight and make sure the active cell is right there. I'm going to go up to conditional formatting and manage rules. And then I'm going to click new rule. And then I'm going to click on use formula. Now, I'm going to show you the keyboard shortcut, which I will use going forward. I'm going to highlight the range in Alt-O-D. Alt-O-D. That's from earlier versions. There's a longer keyboard shortcut if you memorize it here. I'm going to always, for formulas, go Alt-O-D, new rule. And then there's a list of things here. I'm going to say use formula to determine which cells are formatted. And there it is. There's our beautiful text box. It says format values where the formula is true. We mentioned that before. Evaluate to true, the format is applied. False, it is not applied. I'm going to Control V. There it is. That allows us to go and get cell references, but we don't need to do that because we just copied and pasted. And here it is. Here's the format button. So true, false formula. Click here. And then you can do whatever type of formatting you want. And the cool thing about 2007 and 10 is now there's a number tab. So you can apply number formatting. And if you know anything about number formatting, especially custom number formatting, oh, is that powerful. Now, once you figure out what formatting you want, click OK. Click OK. And there's a list of conditional formattings. You can have more than one, and the order here matters. We'll see later when we apply multiple levels of formatting. We'll talk about that, the hierarchy there. I'm going to click OK. And so there we have it on 512. And the beauty of this is I can change this to 6. And I should see none because there aren't any records on the 6th. I should change it to the 7th. And there's 2. All right. Now, what we've done here is a true-false formula and we've applied a color to the cell for a single cell. But that's not usually what you want in this case. Maybe you're auditing or you're looking through records and you just need to type something here and quickly have a visual cue. This is called visualizing the data. So what we'd really like is to highlight the whole row. OK? Now, let's go over to this next sheet, number 9 here. Now, this is the end result on this sheet. We have a date here, and notice the whole row in the data set is highlighted. Now, this is going to involve the same formula we did in our just a moment ago, except we're going to have to think about cell references. Now, if you don't know about the 4 different types of cell references, relative, absolute, mixed with the column locked, and mixed with the row locked, I'm going to click on the CF 9.1. There's a video right here. It says cell reference video link. This link, if you've downloaded the workbook, you can click on it, or just type this name into Google and you'll find the video. You got to watch this video because the remaining 20 tricks in this video are going to involve formulas, and you have to know about cell references. And really, that's why when I teach Excel classes, I always remind people, some 70 to 95% of the Excel users in the world have no idea about mixed cell references. And basically, you're just not allowed to do all the cool advanced tricks. So boom, there it is. All right. So we want to do this. We want to highlight the whole row. Well, get this. It's going to be the same formula. Let's try it over here. Equals, is this date right here equal to this? Now, let's think about this. I'm going to copy this formula to the side, because what we're going to do, and let me suspend this for just a moment, is we're going to highlight the whole data set like this. This cell, this cell, this cell, this cell, this cell, this cell, and this cell all have to ask the same question. Is the date in this row equal to this? All right. Now, that's why I've pre-formatted this, because we're going to pretend like this formula is in the dialog box, but we're going to copy it over and down and watch how it works. Now, let's think about this. right now it's looking there. Now when I start this formula in the dialog box, I'm going to put it into this cell and copy it over. So what do I ask? Every one of these cells, when I copy this cell reference here, needs to be locked on this one. Now we're going to be copying across the columns. So I hit the F4 key 1, 2, 3 times to put the $ in front of the column reference. Now when I copy it down, I need the blue box to move down. And since we're copying across the rows, no $ in front of the number reference, or 8. Now this one has to be locked in all directions. So I hit the F4 and the column and the row reference. Now Control-Enter and copy it over and down. And the beauty of doing it this way when you're learning how is you can clearly see the entire row gets true. And it's because conditional formatting requires you have a true-false formula for every cell. And so look at that. This pattern of trues is perfect. And down here, this is perfect. When we get down to another date down here, true, 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 there it is. It's because that date right there is for this row, the 25th, and matches there. So I'm going to copy. Remember, the top left one, I'm copying this formula. And I'm going to highlight this whole range here. Now, just a moment, I'll show you how to do conditional formatting without putting it into the cells. But when you're learning and when you're doing really hard true-false formulas, really helpful to do it in the cells and visually see if the true and falses are match up, and then copy it, highlight it. The active cell is parallel to this one because you have to build the formula in this cell from the point of view of this cell, which it is. We did over there. Alt-O-D. I'm going to click on New Rule right here, and I'm going to paste it right here. There it is. And I'm going to format it some color, whatever color you want, or whatever formatting in those 4 tabs. All right, and so now the whole row is highlighted. If I change this to 6, it better show me nothing. If I should, because there is no match. So I just change it to 8. Boom. That is beautiful. Let's see another example here. CF10. Now let's do it the same thing. I'm going to highlight this, and we're not going to build the formulas in the cells. But again, that's a good way to learn. And for the complex one, even myself, I don't bother building in the dialog box. I build it in the cells. But this is an easy one. That cell right there is the active cell. So now with that in mind, I'm going to Alt-O-D, Alt-N for that new rule, arrow, 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 tab. And I'm going to build the formula in the dialog box. Whoops, my mouse is not working. All right, so what am I asking? Oh, well, I happen to be in this cell, and I need to match for this whole row here. Is this cell in this row equal to that? So I'm going to click there, and notice it puts in 2 $. I'm going to hit the F4 key once and twice. Lock the column reference, but not the row. And then I'm going to say, is that equal to this? Locked in all directions. Notice we're matching for this row. We have one criteria. Format. And I'm going to add some formatting. You could get as elaborate as you want. Click OK. And there we have it. So only invoices 10501 get this formatting. So if I change it to 2, then the formatting changes. Let's try another one, number 11. Number 11. All right, so earlier we did above average, but now let's do the whole row above average. I'm going to highlight this, and there's the active cell, right? Let me blow this up. There's the active cell, Alt-O-D, Alt-N, arrow, 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 tab. Now I have to build it from the point of view of this cell. But the cell with the number we need to compare is way over here. No problem. We're in essence putting a formula in this cell that's looking at the sales number in this particular row. So I have to hit the F4, lock the column but not the row. And I'm going to have to say, remember, this is above average that we're doing, not equal to. I may not have said that earlier correctly. But I need for this whole row to be highlighted when it's above average. Sales, above average. And I'm going to say greater than or equal to. So that's really not above. It's greater than or equal to. All right, so that formula works. We add some formatting. I'm just going to be quick here. You can get as elaborate as you want. And there we have it, above average for the whole row. All right, now, if I were to change one of these, right? And then it would change because the average has jumped up, right? Control Z. So that is nicer. So there's above average for the whole row. Now let's go to number 12. Let's look at another trick here. Sometimes people want every other row to have a particular color, right? And so that can be pretty tedious, especially on a huge template. No problem. We can do this with conditional formatting. But it's going to involve that we learn how to use the mod function. Now, what is the mod function? Mod function gives you the remainder after doing. If only I could spell and type. So what's 3 divided by 2? 1, remainder 1. What's 4 divided by 2? 2, remainder 0. 5 divided by 2, 2, remainder 1. Let's just do this one equals mod. What if I took 10 divided by 7? What is the remainder? 3. So that's what the mod function does. Isn't that bizarre? Right? You learned how to do remainders back in grammar school, and here it is out there in your high-paying business job, and you have to figure out the remainder again. Well, we're going to get tricky here. We're going to not use numbers like that. Notice that Excel is set up in rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we can group all numbers into 2 categories, odd or even. All right? So we can actually take the row function. Now, what's the definition of even? You divide by 2, and there's remainder 0. So as I copy this down, the number in the denominator, or the top of the fraction, being divided, it's going to be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, we're just going to divide it by the divisor, or the denominator, 2. What is that going to give us? Well, as we see here, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. You got to be kidding me. And guess what? 1 is true, 0 is false. The conditional formatting dialog box will interpret 1 as true and 0 as false. I'm going to actually, yeah, we can copy this, because no matter where we put this, the row function. By the way, the row, if I put it right here, it gives me 6 down here. And if I copy this, right, it's still in row 6. So it's always just going to tell you what row you're in. All right. So now we come over here and highlight however big you want, or however big it is. And it doesn't matter where the active cell is. Right? I'll even prove that. Tab, 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 tab. Enter, enter. All right. Alt-O-D. New rule formula right here, Control V. That formula works everywhere. It'll always give us a 1 in an odd row and a 0 in an even row. If you had to have the, well, let's just see how this works. So I'm going to click Format and click something like a more color, whatever. Again, go hog wild there. All right, now what if you really wanted to have the even rows? You'd have to amend this formula. Maybe I'll just do it over here. A little set right here. Alt-O-D, new rule formula. And you'd have to say, well, 0 is false, but we can make 0 true by saying, hey, anytime that's equal to 0. And now the even rows will get formatted. Some formatting, whatever color. There's a nice lavender. OK, so now only the even rows are highlighted. That's a great trick there. Our 13th trick. This is a very useful trick. I've been using this for as long as I've been using Excel and keeping my checkbook, which is a long time. Here's reconcile. I want to be able to type a Y here and have it turn yellow. All right, so I'm going to highlight this whole range right here. Alt-O-D, new rule formula, and I'm going to say what? Well, we want the whole row. So again, we're thinking mixed cell references. The formula's here, but it always needs to look at boom right there. So I'm going to click there. Notice I'm building the formula from the point of view of this cell. So I have to click on the Y in this row. And I'm going to lock this with the column, but not the row. Anytime that's equal to, in quotes, Y. And then I'm going to format it some color. I have a huge checkbook that I've been keeping for years. It has thousands and thousands of rows. Right? So as soon as I type in a Y, even if you type it in down here where you're not supposed to, it'll turn that color. All right, let's go do number 14. Now, in this case, so far we've just had a value like it's equal to this invoice or it's equal to the letter Y. But here, we want to highlight, remember we did the top 5 and it highlighted the actual cells? I want the whole row to be highlighted. So I don't know a built-in formula here. The first thing is, let's say we want the top 3. I'm going to click right here, and we're going to use I want to find the third largest value before I think of a true-false formula. So I'm going to use not the max function. Max would give me the number 1 biggest. I'm going to use the large. The great thing about the large function is you can give it a particular k, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if you said 3, it'll give you the third biggest. 5, it will give you the 5th biggest. So now I'm going to highlight this whole column, Control-Shift-Down arrow, and then F4 to lock it in all directions, comma, and I'm going to click on this cell. Now, I'm going to leave this here. If you wanted to copy and paste this into the conditional formatting dialog box, you would, but it would have to run it for each cell. I'm just going to keep it here. So actually, you don't in this cell and then refer to it. So actually, we don't need any locked $signs there. They're kind of not necessary. So right now, it'll give me the third biggest. If I typed in 2, that's the second biggest. 5, it's the 5th biggest. I'm going to type 3. All right, now let's think. We need to do the whole row, right? And we're asking a question about this, and we're going to compare it to this. So every single time, we need to say, is this value in this cell greater than or equal to this? Is this value in this cell greater than or equal to this? But remember, we need to do it for the whole row. So I'm going to highlight this cell right here. Equals is this. Now remember, I'm simulating the dialog box. So this cell is parallel to here. And I need to, as I copy it this way, be locked here. So I'm going to hit the F4 key, lock the column reference, but not the row. Anytime that's greater than or equal to this. And I'm going to lock this in all directions. Control-Enter. Control-Z. This formula will pick up duplicates. So if there's a tie for third place, which there is here, it'll pick up all of the values that are tied for third also. I'm going to copy this in edit mode, Control-C, escape. I'm going to highlight this range. I'm going to click there, Control-Shift right arrow, Control-Shift down arrow. That's just a quick way to highlight. And then Alt-O-D, Alt-N, arrow, arrow, arrow. Tab, Control-V. So that's our little formula. And then I'm going to format it. Say something like yellow, whatever. Click OK, click OK. And there we have it. Now, watch this. This picked up duplicates, right? Which is good, because if there's a tie for third, we want to see that record. If I change it to 6, oh, look at that. There was duplicates there. 5. Right, so no duplicate there. So that's a nice way to visualize your data when you're searching for the top 5 or top 3. We saw earlier how to do the cell. Here's how to do the row. All right, conditional formatting number 15. Now we switch on to a different topic, and that's where you have 2 criteria. So far, we've been matching a certain cell with a certain criteria, either with the equal sign or a comparative operator like greater than or equal to. Here we have 2 criteria. So for the row to be highlighted, this cell has to say Moe, and this has to be greater than or equal to 500, right? False. So you got a false and a true. Here you got a true, it's equal to Moe, but false, it's not greater than or equal to 500. Here you have a Moe, which is true, and a second logical test that says this greater than or equal to 500, true. So if you have 2 trues, the whole row is highlighted. So and criteria always means all logical tests must evaluate to true. I'm going to click here, and we'll just simply use what? Function, the and function. I'm going to say, is this cell right here? And I'm going to lock the column reference. Is that equal to this criteria? And lock it in all directions. That's the first logical test, comma, and then the second logical test. That, remember the column reference locked, is that greater than or equal to 500. And that is locked in all directions. That and will only evaluate to true when both logical tests yield a true or evaluate to true. So now we can see, sure enough, the whole row right there, the whole row right here. You can see, sure enough, our cell references work perfect. Now I'm going to very carefully highlight the active cell. Just to show you, I'm going to highlight this one down here. And then I'm going to highlight it like this. Notice it's the active cell, so wherever the active cell is, you have to build it from that point of view. Alt-O-D, Alt-N, arrow, 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 tab, Control-V. Format, and add some color. Click OK, click OK, click OK. All right, so now that's Mo, greater than or equal to 500. Let's try Joe. And sure enough, it updates. Number 16. All right, now this is going to be OR criteria. So for a row to be highlighted, it has to be Joe or Mo. So I'm going to click here and use not the AND function, but the OR. I'm going to click on this and lock the column reference. Equal to this, locked in all directions, comma, same cell again, lock the column reference, equal to this criteria. Now what's happening here is the OR function, you can have one or more, but usually you're going to use two. Two or more. You could have 5 of them, 10 of them. Only one of them needs to come out true for the OR to deliver a true. All right, so I'm going to copy this down and over. And sure enough, it looks like anytime there's a Mo or a Joe, we're getting trues all the way across. So I'm going to copy this, highlight the range, Control-Shift right arrow, and then down arrow, Alt-O-D, Alt-N, down arrow, tab, Control-V. So that little formula there will work. Format, click OK, click OK. Change this to Sue. And sure enough, that's OR criteria. Now, 15 we did AND, 16 we did OR. Now we're going to do them both together. Or no, we're going to do between, right? Because sometimes you want to highlight, you have a certain time period, and you want to highlight all records between. Now this is just AND criteria, right? So equals and we're going to say this one, lock column reference. Anytime that's greater than or equal to the smaller date. And the same date, so we're asking 2 logical tests about the same cell. Column reference locked, less than or equal to this date, locked in all directions. All right, so anytime it's during that period, we are getting a trues for the whole row. So I'm going to highlight, Control-Shift right arrow, down arrow, Alt-O-D, Alt-N, down arrows, tab, Control-V. And then highlight whatever colors you want or whatever formatting. All right, so there are, looks like it's working. Let's change this to 30. There's our 30. 27. All right, number 18. Now we'll see number 18 where we have and OR together. So here it is. We want to see between, we have date criteria. So between these two dates, lower and upper, and OR, one or the other. So in this case, we have, really we have 3 ands. But one of the ands that has to come out to be true is going to be an OR. So what we're going to do is we're going to build and use the AND function and do this test. This will be our second AND test. And the third AND test will be an OR function. So equals AND. So it has, the given record has to be between these two dates. So we'll lock the column reference and say greater than or equal to the lower date. And same date, column reference lock, less than or equal to the upper date. All right, so look at the screen tips, very helpful. Comma, we don't want to get confused. Just remember, we have to somehow do an OR inside this third logical. But we can put the OR function in here, no problem. And inside the or, we're going to have 2, right? Because we have 2 names. We're going to ask this column reference locked equal to Joe, locked in all directions, comma, equal to Mo, locked in all directions. Now, the or, second logical test, one or the other. So we only have to get one true. When we get 2 falses, or will deliver a false. When we get just one, it'll deliver a true. It's never going to get true because you can't have both in one cell. Now I'm going to close off the or here. And now I can see I'm back to the and that or is logical 3 in the and. Whoa. I'm going to copy this. And then highlight that range, Alt-O-D, Alt-N, down arrow. Control-V in this text box, and then format. OK, so it looks like, wow, so it looks like it's working. If I change the range here, you always want to test it, 28. Then there should be some, there's the 28th for Mo. Change this to Chin. And then there's Chin or Joe. So this is an and an or together. Number 19. Ooh, 19 to 21. Actually, I clicked on 1921. Let's click over here and just look at what we're going to do here. A picture tells 1,000 words. If I type 1,225 here, and our allowances are 1, I need to find the tax amount of 15. So what do we need to match? Or what are we doing with conditional formatting? Oh, wow, we need to highlight the whole row, which we saw how to do, and the whole column, and the intersecting value. So 2 things, or 3 things we'll see new here. We'll see how to do it for a column, and the same exact logic will work for a column. We're going to match, this is a whole column. We need to, for every one of these cells here, we need to say, is whatever's right here equal to that? But look about the row. The row's not the same as what we did before because we don't have an exact match. Earlier when we did dates and invoice numbers, we were matching a criteria exactly. But here, we need to do not an exact match, but an approximate match. That's where the VLOOKUP function will come in handy. I need to match this, and for right now, it will match this row, highlight it. We'll see how to do that. And then the intersecting value will be easy because we'll take the logical test for the column, and a second logical test will be our logical test for the row, and put them into an and function. And that'll give us this. So there's actually 1, 2, 3 conditional formattings working here. Now I'm going to come back over here. First thing we need to do is think about what the VLOOKUP function does. Now the VLOOKUP equals VLOOKUP. It's a lookup function. It actually works just like we look up things by hand. If you have an income to look up, you say, you put this into your brain. You remember, I'm looking up 1,250. You come over, you look through some table, and when you bump into the first number bigger than it, you jump back 1 row. And you say, oh, that 1,000. Now, normally, you usually then go over and get some number like a tax or a commission rate or an employee hire date or something like that. But in this example, we need to return this 1,000 because the VLOOKUP is going to deliver 1,000, and we're going to build a logical formula out of it, which says the delivered value 1,000, remember, based on this, is it equal to the row header? So let's just see if we can get VLOOKUP to work. I'm going to click there and lock it in all directions with the F4 key, comma. Our table array is going to be just this first column, and F4, table. That's the table that contains the values you're looking up, comma. And now, if you know how to use VLOOKUP, it's very uncommon that you'd have 1 column, because usually you look something up and then return something to a subsequent column. But here, we're looking it up. The lookup column and the return column are the same. So we have to put column index 1. That tells the VLOOKUP which column has the value I want to return. For us, it's 1. Now, the last argument, comma, approximate or exact, you can leave it off. The default is approximate, so I'm not going to even put it. I'm going to backspace, close parentheses. Now, When I hit enter, the result is going to be really confusing because in every single cell, it's going to return 1,000. Now, if I change this to 2,500, or I'm sorry, 2200, right? So then it's returning this 2,000 here. Now, why do we have it like that? I'm going to Control Z, because now we can ask the question, is this, remember, because we're trying to get the whole row to say true. Well, only this row here has a row header called 1,000. So we're going to say equals, remember, this is the active cell here. I'm going to click on that one. And I'm going to lock it. We have to, every single row has to look at the row header. So I'm going to lock the column reference. Control Enter. Drag it over. Drag it down. And you can see we get trues only for the row that has the value. So now I'm going to type in 2,750. And I better get trues for this row right here, which is this one. So you, and if you don't use VLOOKUP, it'll work for an approximate or an exact match. Because remember, what is the logic? It takes this value, the VLOOKUP takes this, bumps into the first value bigger, 3,000, and jumps back one row. All right. I'm going to copy this and just, this is a logical formula now. We've used VLOOKUP and a comparative operator equals and a cell reference to create a logical formula. It delivers true or false. Copy. Highlight the range. The active cell is right there. Open up my dialog box, Alt-O-D, new rule, Control-V, and I'm going to add yellow. Click OK, click OK. Now, there's one. We're going to build 3, and we'll talk about the hierarchy here. But let's just see if this one works. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Now, the column should be no problem. In fact, we'll build it in our dialog box. Alt-O-D, Alt-N, down arrow tab. I'm going to say, now remember, we're looking at column headers now, right? Is this column header? And now when I copy this formula down, it needs to be locked. But when I move to the next column, it needs to move. So I'm locking with the F4 key only the row reference, not the column. Anytime that's equal to this allowance, locked in all directions, I add a color. Now, this is the second test, so it will be applied on top of the yellow. And that's what the hierarchy means. The one at the top will preside over this one. So you can see the hierarchy means the orange is on top. Now, I'm going to highlight that same range, Alt-O-D. You can come back and edit these, Alt-O-D. Now, if you made a mistake, you can click on this and edit, or you can double click and edit it, right? And then change it or change the formatting. Editing is very important. Let's just see what happens if we change the order. There it is, move up. All it's going to do is now the yellow is going to be applied because it's on top. I'm going to Control Z because I want the orange. Oh, actually, whichever way. Maybe Control Y. Maybe the yellow on top looks better. Actually, it doesn't matter because we're going to have one last test here, and it's going to be the red, and that will preside. So now I'm going to copy this again without the equal sign. Copy. I'm going to highlight this, and now, actually, we could go like this. How about this? Since this is a little bit hard here, let's build it in the cell. Remember, all we have to do is take column test, row test, combine them together in an AND. AND, logical 1, comma, logical 2. Click on this. It needs to be locked going down across the rows, but not the column. So F4 to lock the row, but not the column. Whenever that's equal to this. Locked in all directions, so I hit F4. There's 2 logical tests. I close off the AND, Control Enter, double click, copy it over, and then down. And sure enough, only the intersecting value. Let's just change this to 2. And sure enough, look at that. All right, now I'm going to be very careful and copy the one from the uppermost left corner. And when I highlight this range, the active cell is the uppermost left corner. Conditional formatting. Whoops, I did it the long way. Control V, and now I'm going to put a red. Red is a dark value color, so I always put some light font color like white so that you can actually read it. And there it is. That is how to do a intersecting value and a column and a row. I just absolutely love it. Now when I change this to 1,500, it jumps down. When I change it to 4, it jumps over there. All right, now, so that was 3 cool things. Let's look at our next one, 22 to 24. Now this one has 3 criteria, but notice, oh, I'm sorry, I'll come over here. When I change one of these, so I'm going to change it to section 4 now. So property 1 and property 4 have to be matched here for a row to be highlighted. Well, that's no problem. We can use an and, because this cell has to equal that, and this cell has to equal that. And then it's a simple matching of April to April here. And then the intersecting value will be the 2 tests together. So we come over here. I'm going to highlight, and I'm going to build this one inside the dialog box just to show you that it is possible. Active cell right there, Alt-O-D. And I'm going to say equals and open parentheses. Well, I know I'm testing the row header. So I'm going to click in this first cell here and lock the column reference, but not the row, and say whenever that's equal to this, locked in all directions, comma, and, because we need 2 of them, not this one, but this one right here, F4, lock the column reference anytime that's equal to this, close parentheses. So we have 2. Now I'm going to copy this, because I know I'm going to use it again later. Format. Let's just see if that works. Sure enough, that works. Now I'm going to highlight that whole thing. Now I have that copied a little bit in memory, but I'm going to do the column now. Alt-O-D, Alt-N. And let's do the column. So I'm matching this. So these all have to, even though these will never be colored, I still want to start. I want to start there so that the conditional formatting range is the same for all of the formulas. I'm going to say anytime that. And this is a column, so I need it locked going down, but not to the side. So I'm going to just lock the row reference anytime that's equal to this. Locked in all directions. And do that same boring combination, orange, right? And then I'm going to add a third one, new rule. And this is going to be formula. Now I need to combine both the row and the column. So I'm going to say and. And actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to go equal sign and Control V. Now that is just the row. But all I need to add to it is one other bit. So I'm going to come to the end, comma, and build that same little piece again. That, I'm going to lock the row reference, not the column, is equal to this, locked in all directions. So all we did is add a third one. And I'm going to format it red. And why? Because yellow and orange mixed together is red. Click OK, click OK. And now we have our 3 values, 1, 2, 3, and the hierarchy. I'm going to click OK, and let's test it. I'm going to change it to February. Absolutely amazing. Now, in this particular situation, if you select property 1 and section L, there is no property 1 section L, so it won't add any formatting. But as soon as you change it to section 2, then it works. All right, now our next example, 25 to 27. Now what we're going to do here is called a Gantt chart. It's actually a cell chart. If we come over and click on the answer, we can see what our goal is here. We want to have a start date, a number of days, and an end date, and have it highlight. Now all the trues and falses are here just to illustrate, but this is really what it looks like. So if I change this to 6, it has to highlight 6 days. It also has to know in this particular chart that our weekend is Sunday and that this is defined as a Monday. So we were going to have 2 sets of conditional formatting. Let's go back over to this sheet right here. First trick is we want to find the end date. Now I'm going to use Excel 2010 functions because the functions Date functions for Workday and networking days are absolutely awesome. What you had to do before 2010 was quite complicated. All right, let's figure out the end date. I have a start and a number of days. We don't want to just go like this. That's a serial number and add, because that will do just fine, but it's not skipping over Sundays, because our weekend is Sunday and our holiday. So we're going to use equal work day. Now there's two work days. This one existed 2007, 2003, and earlier. This is a new one, Workday International, 2010 only. Now Workday just considers the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, but Workday International will give us lots of options. Now what does Workday do? We give it a start date, a number of days, and it tells us what the actual date is. So start date right here, comma, number of days, 6. Now here's the problem. We're going to have to subtract 1 because we don't want to. Right now it's going to add 6 other days, and we want to include this day. This is one of the work days, so I'm going to subtract 1, comma, and here's the amazing thing, weekend. It just gives us the option. Before this function here, you had to do some pretty fancy things to figure out the end serial number date. So I'm going to click 11, comma, and holidays. Check this out. And you can highlight a single cell or a bunch of cells. I'm going to highlight a bunch, and then if I come in later and add some here, it will consider them. Now I'm going to F4 to lock that in all direction and close parentheses. All right, so that's the end date. Why do we do end and begin? Because we need to now do conditional formatting and ask the question, for this cell right here, given a start and an end, is this date greater than or equal to this? And is this date less than or equal to this? So we can do equals and. We're always comparing this date. And now this is a column header. When I move this way, it needs to move. But when I copy it down, it needs to be locked. So I'm going to lock the row reference. I hit F4 twice. Greater than or equal to this. Now this one, when we copy this direction, has to be locked on the row header. But when I copy down, it needs to move. So I'm going to lock the column reference, but not the row, comma. And then the next test is the same date. I'm going to lock the row reference, less than or equal to this. Lock the column reference. Close parentheses. Copy it all the way over and all the way down. All right, so we should see here just 2 trues. For this one right here, we should see true, true all the way to here. But now notice, that will be the first conditional formatting. We actually need to eliminate this Sunday and this Monday. In essence, we need to somehow come up with a true false that will say, and I want a different color there, that's going to say this is one of the weekend days, or it's one of the holidays. So we're going to come down here, and we're going to actually look at the, actually, maybe I'll do this. Maybe I should move this over here. I was going to build it off to the side, but I built it right there. That's just, in fact, let's do this one first, and then we'll come down and talk about the next one. So I'm going to copy this. I put it right in the actual cell. Later, we'll delete the formulas. I'm going to highlight this whole range here. Alt-O-D, new rule, formula, Control-V, and then say green. So green is for go. That's when the project is on. All right, so now we have one date. That's exactly right. Our bunch of dates there. We just need to fix it. It should be green there, green there. And now this next, we're going to have to figure out another true-false test just to have true for a different color there. Actually, might as well build this right in the same cell. Let's see. No, I'm not going to do that. And then we'll be able to see the trues come up only in the green range only for a weekend or holiday. Well, we're going to use the net working days. Now, the same two things existed. This one is an earlier version, Saturday and Sunday for weekends only. This one gives us the options. Now, what is net working days? It's going to tell us the number of working days between two dates. And here's the trick. We're actually going to, for start and end, it's going to be just this column header. And what it will do is, since net working days counts actual number of working days, it'll tell us 1 when it is a working day and 0 when it is not, because we're only giving it the possibility if the start and the end are the same. So I'm going to click here and lock the row reference. That's the start, comma, the end, row reference. It can only give us a 0 or a 1. Now, that's not going to quite work, but let's just see if we can get that to work and see a string of 1s and 0s. Comma, now what's the weekend? Oh, this is so easy. Comma, and then the holidays are down here locked in all directions. Now, let's copy this over. Copy this over. And now it should show zeros. Because remember, what does the net working day do? It tells us number of working days. So we instructed it with the weekend argument right here to skip over Sundays, and we instructed it with the holidays to skip over holidays. So of course, because our start and our end date are the same day, it's going to give us a 0. Luckily, there's something called the not, N-O-T function. And not turns true to false and false to true. And since 1 is true and 0 is false, we can simply wrap the not function around this, and it will give us our trues exactly where we want. I remember I did a video with a really complicated way, and then one of the comments at YouTube was, why don't you try this cool not networking days? Totally awesome. And there it is. Look at that. Within our green, we see our trues. Now we're going to slap this formula up there and say, please give me red. And that will highlight for our Gantt cell chart the weekends and holidays. Again, it's the same idea. You copy from the uppermost left cell. And when you highlight, the active cell has to be the upper leftmost. Alt-O-D. I'm going to add a new rule, formula, Control-V, and I'm adding a color. OK, OK, OK. Now, let's check this out. Ooh, that is not going to work. That's not what we want. We have, in essence, for the whole chart, shown our Sunday and Monday, which could be fine. But I don't, for right here, I don't want to see those reds there. So guess what? This is similar to that intersection we did a while ago. So we're going to have 2 criteria. It's the one that got us the green and the one that got us the red. Now I'm going to remove all of these formulas here. On the answer sheet over here, I did them down here so you can look at them if you want. But now I'm going to go back up here. I've highlighted the correct range. Alt-O-D. And I'm going to cheat here. I'm going to double click this to edit it. And I'm going to copy it. Not the equal sign, Control-C, escape. And now I'm going to add, ooh, I have 2 right there. OK, so I'm going to put this down in the cell. Just paste it right there. And then I'm going to cheat Alt-O-D. I should have kept these somewhere else. Double click, and I'm going to copy this one. I'm actually going to put these together in a cell down here. It's easier than doing it up there. So now Control-V. So I got an and. Those 2 things have to be true. And remember, it's an intersection. So I have 1, 2 for that first one and this one. So I'm going to get rid of the comma, the close parentheses for the and. I can see logical 2, so I'm going to type a comma. There's the logical 3 is that big not, and then close parentheses here. And I can see up here that it's pointing up all to the right cell. So I'm building this formula down here, but it's as if it's right in the top leftmost corner. Control-C, Enter. I'll leave that there. Now I'm going to highlight active cell, has to be in that upper, wherever the formula was built, has to be parallel. Alt-OD. New rule. I'm going to paste it here, Control-V. Format. Red. Click OK. And now I'm going to delete this one. Delete. And I want this one on top, so it is on top. Click OK. And there we have our cell chart. Is that totally cool? Now let's do a little test here. I'm going to delete this right here. Ooh, a num error. So that means we're going to have to fix this and this conditional formatting. I'm going to double click here. I'm going to use the if error function. If error is great. You can just slap your function in there, come to the end, comma, and the value if error is going to be double quote. Now this will mess up our conditional formatting, but now I'm going to come over here and highlight this range here. And actually, we're going to have to add another condition, Alt-OD. To each one of these are ands. I'm going to have to say this is not blank. Oops. Escape. New rule. I'm sorry. Double click, that was right. And I'm going to add a new condition. Now, it's probably safer to do it in the cells, but there's the active cell. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to lock the column reference. Not less than, greater than, double quotes for blank, and then comma. I'm actually going to copy that a little bit. I'm going to click OK. Now I'm going to double click this. Click right there and click on that cell reference right there. Oh, I could have copied the whole thing and Control-V. So in essence, I did replicated that little bit right there. Click OK, click OK. And so now we have only those. So now we can fill this out. So I'm going to do one other test because we're going to have another problem here. 5/29. That is Sunday. And I'm going to type 2 here. Now, what's happening is this is 2 days, and we need 2 greens, but we're not getting it. What I want to do is I want to disallow anyone putting a holiday or a Sunday there. So now I'm going to come down here. We're going to use and we're going to have to build a true-false formula, but we're not going to use conditional formatting. We're going to use data validation. Now, a lot of times, people use data validation lists, but you can use data validation for all sorts of things, including a logical formula. So let's think of a logical formula. It's simply going to be that NETWORKDAYS.INTL. We're going to do that same trick. This cell is the start, comma, this cell is the end. Notice we're leaving them relative because it's going to be in a dialog box, just like conditional formatting, but it's going to be as if it were copied down the column, comma, the weekend is going to be Sunday, comma, and the holidays are going to be here. F4, close parentheses. Now, what is this going to do? Before we use not, right now, it's going to say this day is allowed, right? It's 1. That one is allowed. But watch what happens when we come down and we hit a Sunday or a holiday, which would be 5/30. Zeros. And as we know, 1 is true, 0 is false. So I can simply use this formula, not for conditional formatting, but for data validation custom. So I'm going to highlight this range. Data validation is data validation, validation. Alt-DL, tab. And in this list right here, you want custom. There's the formula. It's the same idea as conditional formatting, except for if it's true, you're allowed to put it in the cell. If it's not, you're not allowed. I'm going to Control-V. And then I'm going to come over here to error alert and say something like enter validate or enter. You can put whatever you want. Holidays and Sundays not allowed. Something like that. Hopefully I spelled things right. I click OK. And so now what happened? It let me have those in there. Well, you got to do the validation first. I'm going to type 5/29. And there it is. Holidays and Sundays not allowed. PAL. Retry. So now I can do 5/31 and 2. And there we have our days. All right, so that was a wild one there. Two last ones. Real quick, this is a nice easy one, 28 and 29. We want to highlight dupes. I just got to show you the built-in feature, so I'm going to highlight this. And down here, okay, I'm going to accept the default. Notice that both 12s get highlighted, and sometimes that's not what you want. You really want the extra one, right? I want this one, but I want to color this one because I don't want it. So let's look at a formula, a true-false formula. We're going to use COUNTIF, and we're going to use the name error. There's no such thing. What does a name error mean? It means there's no such thing as COUNTMOTIF. COUNTIF. And now, right now, if I was counting 12s, I would get 1 here. But down here, if I was going down and adding them up as I went along, I'd get a 2 here. So let's see how to do that. Let's do an expandable range. This range is the values that you want to evaluate. I'm going to shift colon, and then I'm going to comma. The criteria is going to be relative cell reference right there. Here's the trick. We need an expandable range, because right now it'll give us 1. There's 112. If I were to copy this formula down, it would be ridiculous, because here it would still be there. But what we're going to do is see how C4, C2, we want it to be locked on C2. So I'm going to lock the row reference. This is an expandable range now. So I copy it down. I can see that I get the number 2. I can see the blue range is expanded. Expandable range. That will work. What do? We say greater than 1. So that way, anytime it gets 1, 2, 3, 4, however many, it'll get a true that's greater than 1. If I type another 12 here, right? So just so they're parallel, this COUNTIF delivers a 3, 1, 2, 3, but it's greater than 1. All right, so this is the formula to use. Copy. If you want, highlight duplicates, but not the first one. Alt-O-D, new rule, Control-V, format, some color. Click OK, click OK, click OK. And there you have it. The first one is not highlighted, nor is the first 76. All right, that's pretty wild, 29. Actually, we better make it 30. So we're on CF30, the sheet. Here we want to compare actual dollars spent to budgeted. So here's our expenses. Here's the actual amount that we spent. Here's our budgeted, and here's the difference. Now, I have a randomizing formula here. So if I hit the F9 key, it's changing these numbers. But the difference is, well, we actually spent 536, and we only budgeted 500. So we have a minus here. And what we want to do is highlight the whole row. All right, so no problem. We've done this a lot of times. This is our last video. This should be second nature by now. Highlight the range, the active cell up in the corner. I'm going to Alt-O-D, open up conditional formatting. New rule formula, click right here. And I'm going to say, boop, that one right there with the column reference locked is less than 0. So that's our true-false logical formula. Anytime it comes out to be true, less than 0, I'm going to fill some amount. Click OK, click OK, click OK, and boom. Now if I hit F9, you can see anytime we are running, spending more than we've budgeted, it will turn red. Actually, let's do one other thing since I never showed you that Alt-O-D. Let's amend this. Now, this is important to know here. If you want to edit this, you can either say edit or double click. That way you can, if your logic isn't working, you can change that. But let's come over here, number format. Let's do number. None of the 30 examples I did number. I'm going to put currency. So a currency number format will happen only when there's a negative number, which is kind of silly here. But let's see how this works. Click OK, click OK. So there we have it when I hit the F9. The rest are regular, general. These ones have red and currency. All right, that was 30 examples of conditional formatting. Epic time here. We'll see you next video.